It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
911, what are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Gia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
Hey, get away from that. Don't touch that. Unta! I can't stand those Jawas. Disgusting creatures. Happy holidays and welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Took a little break last week. I did a member show, but it was nice to just kind of unplug for a while, spend time with family and friends, and I hope you did it as well. Tonight we're going to be chatting with Joe, and 34 years ago in Central Texas, he used to be a coon hunter. He was out there and he had a run-in with one of these creatures. And for the longest time, Joe thought it was the devil. When he kind of explains what he saw, you'll understand why he said that. We're also going to be chatting with Ben. And back in 2020, this happened right around Richmond, New Hampshire. He was out there on a hike and had a run-in with one of these creatures. And what's fascinating is both of these guys, they never really gave Bigfoot a second thought until they had an encounter. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Joe to the show. Joe, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
If you would, Joe, take me back 34 years ago out there in Central Texas. Kind of what were you doing and what happened?
Well, at that time I was 16 years old, and I'm now 50 years old. And I had a dream, and I woke up to a dream that I went coon hunting. I got me a big coon, you know. And back then, the coons, you could sell a hide for $25, $30. You know, for my age, that's a pretty good chunk of change for me back then. And I got up and I went with my dad up. Said, Dad, do you mind if I go hunting to this ranch? There's a ranch. It's called the Blue Mountain Ranch, but it's not Blue Mountain. The reason they called it, the old folks used to say Blue Mountain because the mountain looked blue. And it's 25 miles away from town in the middle of nowhere. There's a ranch. We used to go hunting, and my brother worked for the rancher, a wealthy family rancher there. But my father was friends with the rancher, and we had hunting rights to go hunting, varmints, or deer hunting during the seasons. So, and I would go with Dad and go hunting. And this particular night, I woke up with a dream, and I woke my dad up and said, Dad, can I go hunting at the ranch? I want to go coon hunting. Would that be okay? It was like, I'm guessing in October, the late part of October. I know it was I'm trying to think, Saturday night. It was not a school night. And he said, okay, let's go. Just be careful. So I have a nylon 622 rifle. It's a long rifle. And I put my covers on because it gets cold out there. It was that season. So I got in my Bronco. I had a 72 Ford Bronco. My dad let me used to go hunting or to school only. That's the only privilege I had. So I took off on the store. I filled up. I got me a Dr. Pepper and I got me a burrito. So, and at home, I got my dog. I had a 2.5-year-old. He was a cross mix with pit bull and a cur dog. And I named him Chato. In Chato name. He was short but stocky. I called him Chato. So shorty, in Spanish, Chato. So I named him. So here we go. I loaded him in the truck and he was excited. I mean, he's hyper. He's excited to go. We've been hunting before and he gets real excited. So we took off west. We go out in the pasture 25 miles and I got to the gate and I got off to open the gate and when I came back, I looked behind the truck and he was just in a upright position looking down at the ranch. Just looking. He was kind of like alert. I saw him, and he usually wagging his tail, but he was not wagging his tail. I knew something was up, but I didn't pay no mind. I'm just being a kid. Okay, let's just go have fun, Went in, closed the gate, drove down. Well, I got to the ranch house. You see the ranch house, goes around the corner, goes around the house. When I got there, there's all the rancher had a bunch of cows and bulls. They were all bunched up in a pile together, like a huddle. They're all together. I said, that's strange. That's weird. And it was foggy. It was kind of like 50 degrees, 40, more or less. I'm guessing it's cold to have my cover on, my jacket with me. And that's just weird because I used to see them in the pasture. They're scattered. You can see their eyes shine. They're just scattered, sleeping, relaxing, doing their thing. But they're all bunched up. So I just kept driving by real slow. As I'm going real slow, I was getting close to the creek. I stopped. And I couldn't feel any movement behind my truck. I said, oh, my God. I said, Chato jumped out and chasing the cows. But and I went through my light and looked. No, he was back there. He was back there had his head up. He had head up. His chest popped out. And his tail was up. And he was just looking directly towards the gravel creek. This gravel creek ran for miles. I don't know how far it went. It was a big ranch, but I can't tell you the acreage. I didn't know. And, well, I got off. And I got off for a minute. So I just ate my burrito. I got opened my Dr. Pepper. I closed the lid, half of it. So I put half of it in my coveralls. It's okay. So I got up. I went to the back to open the tailgate. And I said, let's go, Chato. And he was not moving. He was staring at the creek. I looked at him. And then all of a sudden, he had this deep growl. He started growling. Not at me. He just had this deep growl. And he kept looking like a low growl. And it kind of, okay. And I told him myself, what's wrong with you? Something's wrong or what? I didn't register. And so I got my leash. I have a chain leash. At the end, I got a loop on it. I looped him and I jerked a little bit and he kind of hesitated. I said, he usually jumps off. He usually jumps off and goes with me. Took him off and I put the loop of the leather through my left arm elbow. And I put it there so I can take him with me and I had my rifle on my right hand. I went maybe, I'm guessing 500 feet, not for sure, and the creek bed, it drops down like a little valley. It drops down like 10 or 15 feet and then you hit the creek bed. Well, I stopped and as I was walking, you know where you wear the coveralls, you walking and you can hear the grass and the thorns hitting. That's all I could hear. Silent. It was so quiet. I couldn't hear the frogs. You can hear frogs at night. You can hear crickets. And sometimes you can hear from distance the coyotes yelping. Not a sound. There was no moon. It was just split dark. And I could see, and I couldn't see very far. My light is those little 6-volt batteries back then. You put the positive and the negative cable to the cable and you tighten it and you put it on the side and you have a little lamp you can fold up and you have a little switch, left and right switch. So I would turn it on and I couldn't see much, but it would give me enough to see a little eye shine, in the tree line. I went down the creek. As I'm walking down the creek, I could hear the gravel. As I'm walking, I could hear the dog. I walked a little ways, maybe half a mile, hit this little corner, a bend. You go in the bend there, and usually there's like a little water hole where the ground holds water. And I expected maybe I'll see a deer. Maybe I'll see a hog or something jump up and go. Didn't see nothing. So I walked a little further west, and kind of got windy and kind of cool. I got a breeze, and then it hit me. I got a horrible smell. A smell that, and I have a weak stomach. So I wanted to gag. And I moved up faster. I ran up the creek and I trotted with me. I could feel jerking, but I was pulling him to get away from that smell. I didn't want it. It was making me gag. And I passed the smell. And I finally got my breath. And I was looking around, scanning. So I started walking. And when I started walking, I heard like a thump. And I heard another thump. And I said, you know what? Maybe I woke up a bull. I spooked when you're in the pasture, you spook a bull and it gets up and moves. That's what I thought I heard. Hey, just a bull. You spooked him. He's moving. That's what the thump. I thought in my mind. I said it's just a bull. So I moved it. I kept walking, and then when I walked, it kept walking with me. It was a thump. Like, I don't know if you ever heard a thumper with those cylinder pistons, air machines, or you thump on the ground, you go thump. It was like a heavy foot hit, and then a little bit heavy foot hit. I thought it was a bull. So I stood there listening, so I just kept walking. And I kept feeling Chato tugging, and he started whining. At this time, whining, when he gets excited, when he wants to whine, he gets excited, he wants to go. He wants to take off and whatever it is. Now, if I let him go, he's going to go find a skunk or a deer. He'd done that before. A porcupine, they had to pull a bunch of porcupines out of his face. And I didn't want to do that, And then I walked, and then I heard, pow, a loud break. It's like if you grab a limb on a tree trunk and you snap it and break it. I heard a loud break, and I stopped. And I said, you know what? I want to let Chato go. And if there's a bull, he'll run him off. Well, I turned around my lamp to my left where I had him, and Wes, he was choking himself. He was backing up, crawling, jerking back with his head choking, and his tail was under his belly. He was just trying to get away. And I looked at him. He kind of gave me the creep, and I grabbed to pull him towards me. When I grabbed, he jerked away from me, and Wes, he took off on me. And I got this leery feeling. This is not good. And I stood there. I don't know. I can't tell you how long, 30 seconds, maybe, listening. And I got real nervous. And then I heard this growl, this deep growl. If I'm looking at you, look to my right on the kind of corner up the embankment there. I heard a deep, deep growl. I can't say it's a growl. It was like how would you say a gargle? A gargle sound, or you get an old door and you try to open it, and it's been a rusted old door and it's real loud, like gargle growl. It's not a dog growl. Automatically, my mind registered a mountain lion. I said, I'm fixing to be jumped by a mountain lion. I didn't know what to do. I said, and then I looked. I said, I'm going to look. I'm going to face it, whatever it is, I'm going to look. From distance, I saw the tree line. My headlamp's on, and my headlamp was pointed up because I'm looking at the tree line. So I had to bring it down a little bit to look down, bring my head down. And as I looked down, I saw these red eye shines. I mean, it was big red eye shine. I'm giving to you. If you look at a cow from distance, but these were red and big eyes, red eye looked at me. But I could not make out. It was too far. And I'm trying to focus. And then out of the blue, right there and then, a horrible scream down the creek from me, a horrible scream. It's just a scream I can't explain to you. In my mind, a mountain lion. I said, this cat's circling around. I thought it was an eye. When I saw the eye sign, to me, it was an owl. It was high up in the air, an owl. But when I heard the scream, I looked to my left. I couldn't see nothing. And that scream freaked me out. I said, this cat's circling me. And I only had a 22. So here, I'm taking my 22 off safety because I didn't have a clue. And then I didn't have a clue. And then on my right again, on my right side, I heard the sound thumping, like it was whatever it was coming to me. I could hear it a little bit louder and hear the vibration. And when I turned to my right and I looked up, it was looking at me. I saw this huge, the eyes, and I went down and I saw this huge human figure. Huge. I don't know if you've seen, you open the double door freezer wide, and I saw a head, the door, and I couldn't make the silhouette or the human figure out. I just saw a head and come down, big body, and then I could see the leg figures. And I looked, and instantly came to me, I saw this is the freaking devil. I thought, now Bigfoot, I don't know about Bigfoot. I had no clue. I didn't even know what that was or existed. I said, oh my God, this is a demonic, the freaking devil. I said, well, why is this happening to me? And I panicked, got scared. And all I remember, I used to know where the devil has horns and has hoof like a horse. And I just glanced real quick. I thought I could see the horns, and I saw it, and just all I could see was big eyes and a huge body. So Wes, at that time, all I could think of, hey, drop the gun, put my head down. And I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see it no more. Whatever it was looking at me, or whatever it was. And I knew at the time, this thing was, whatever it was going to kill me. I was waiting for the blow. I was waiting for it just to grab me. I couldn't move. I just panicked, and I went into a fright. And all I could think of in my mind is pull my head down, and I started saying the Lord's Prayer, Psalms 23. And I started saying it. I started saying it. And just started praying, and I started praying and saying the Lord's Prayer, and I knew I was gonna die. It terrified me inside. I felt this cold feeling, and I couldn't move. It's like I had 300 pounds on me or somebody on me. I couldn't move. I couldn't back up. I couldn't do nothing, and I just kept saying that prayer real low. Never looked up, and I started backing up. Rest. I backed up, and I started backing up a little bit, and I'm just praying. Well, all I can say and all I can remember is I walked up to my truck, the Jeep, my Bronco. I walked up to the Bronco. I can't tell you how I left from there and I walked to the Bronco. I don't know how I got there. All I know is I got there, I opened the truck, got in the truck, I took off, and I was just, I was a mess. I was messed up. And I didn't know what to think. I was just terrified. I just wanted to get out of there. I left. I got on to the gate of the ranch, got out, got on the highway. I'm going down the highway. I'll give it a quarter mile. And then I saw something, and it was Chato. He was running. He was running on the highway towards town. And I stopped, and I yelled at him. And he heard me, and I put over to the side. He ran and jumped in, laid down on the passenger floorboard. Just jumped in, laid down. He was shaking. Wes, I went home. I hate to say it, but it's going to be embarrassing, but I'll just tell you. Went home, put him up, got in the house, the room. I just couldn't think. I was so nervous. I took my clothes off, and my underwear was wet. And I went to smell, and I pissed in my pants and didn't even know it. And I never told my dad nothing. I didn't want to be made fun of. I didn't even mention it to my brother. It just shocked me. It scared me so bad, and I didn't want to talk about it. I just didn't want to talk about it. I tried to go 2 weeks. I was afraid my dad was going to ask me about the rifle. Where's your rifle? What'd you do with it? I was scared to ask my dad about the rifle because I didn't want to lie to him and tell him. He never did. 2 weeks, I got just enough nerve during daylight to go out there to the gate. I got to the ranch gate. I didn't go in. I got there, and I went to pet Chato, and Chato had the same behavior. He just looking and just wouldn't acknowledge. He had the same behavior. You know what? I got in my truck. I went home. Never again. I went back. I left my gun there.
Yeah, that's a scary account, Joe. I mean, I would have been terrified too, and most coon hunting dogs are crazy in the sense that they'll go after just about anything with, completely fearless. And the way your dog was acting. I wanted to ask you, when you were looking at this thing, I know it might be hard to tell. I mean, it was at night, you had your headlamp on. Would you say those eyes were glowing, or would you say it was more eye shine?
Bright red. Just bright red with the light. It was like a piercing red look. From distance with my flashlight, you can see just bright red. I can't recall glowing. I just saw big red eyes.
Yeah, I've heard it described the way you described it as well, Joe. As far as people will say it was basically a refrigerator with a head and legs, that big square, just a huge body. How far, I know we're going back 34 years, how far away from you was this creature?
I'm guessing, and I may be telling you incorrectly. I'm guessing when I first saw it, maybe 100 feet. When I first saw the eye shine, when I thought it was an owl. The second time when it was right there, we're looking maybe 25, 30 feet. And I was looking right at it. And that's when I took a second glance because I automatically, the devil, the horns, I want to see the horns. It's just something that I look and I put my head down. And that's when I dropped my gun. And that's when oh my God, I knew I was going to die. I would just wait for the blower, for it to attack me. I just didn't know what to do. And then I didn't mention this to you, how Bigfoot got involved. I watched years later, I ended up watching a movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek. And I saw this little boy shooting at this creature from distance in the brush line. And when I saw it, that's when it intrigued me. And that's what I saw, the figure.
Yeah. How big do you think this thing was compared to you at that time?
Oh my God, he's big. It was big, freezer size. He was just, I don't know, 3-4 feet, the width of a refrigerator. And I can't tell you the height because I was down in the creek and it was up. It was down looking at me. So I can't tell you. Sometimes the mesquite trees or oak trees, the branches hang from 6 to 10 feet. I could not tell you.
Yeah, it's a terrifying account, Joe. And I can see why you would be confused and think it's a mountain lion up until the point to where you saw the figure and the red eyes. And I always tell people to pay attention to your dog because your dog will tell you when these things are around. I want to ask you, why do you think it didn't attack you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I just started praying, and maybe I wasn't a threat. Maybe, I don't know. I just prayed. I knew I was going to get attacked. I knew I was going to die. And I just couldn't do nothing. I was just waiting. I was just praying and just waiting for it to, I was just waiting for a blow or something grab me. I knew something was happening. And that's when I started praying and started moving backwards. When I started moving backwards, that's when, to me, everything went just dead silence. And all I remember is walking up to my truck, the Jeep, and opening the door. I can't remember how I got there.
Yeah, you're in shock. You're in complete shock at that point. And I don't blame you. I mean, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I probably would have pissed myself too. You're out there. I would never hunt at night, but I know coon hunters, you guys hunt at night, and sounds like you're being surrounded. You see the red eyes and this huge figure standing there looking at you. It almost makes me wonder if there was more than one, because you're seeing this huge figure standing there looking at you, and you're hearing the screaming from a different area. It makes me wonder if there's more than one.
Well, the scream's here, and then I look, and this thing's right there already looking at me, closer, right there. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. It's just, that's what took place, and that's all I know.
Yeah. And I know you went back to look for your gun, but beyond that time of looking for your gun, did you ever go back to that area?
I don't want to go back no more. I don't want no part of it. And it ruined me. Whereas since then, I don't go coon hunting. I don't go deer hunting no more. It just ruined me. When it gets dark, I get out of there. I don't want to be around the dark anymore. By myself, I won't be. And they can invite me and all that. I just don't. When it comes to the dark, I don't want to go out there no more. Unless I just have to. Other people around, something like that, yes, I will. But by myself, you won't catch me out there no more. I just don't. I completely lost going hunting or doing anything anymore.
I get it. I definitely get it. You know, it's one of those things, Joe. It's amazing to me how these creatures react in different situations. And this is just my opinion from interviewing a multitude of eyewitnesses. What's strange is you'll find with fishermen, it's almost more aggressive. They're way more aggressive, it seems like, with fishermen. With hunters, what they'll do, same behavior you're describing what happened to you, but it's more of an intimidation. They're trying to scare you. They're trying to make you leave. But generally, you know, they're not going to throw rocks, or especially if you're armed. It's very strange because you'll hear a fisherman and these creatures will come out, bluff charge them, throw rocks at them, almost torment them. They're not quite so ballsy with hunters. It's more of intimidation, making you scared, making you want to leave. I know you kind of dropped your gun, put your head down, and started praying. It sounds like your prayers were answered that day.
I hope so. I'm here. Except for my dogs to leave me hanging dry, but I'm here. I mean, maybe somebody's watching over me and got me through it.
Yeah, and I know this happened to you 34 years ago, and it still bothers you to this day, and I know you still struggle with it. And to be honest with you, I think most people who've had an encounter, it still bothers them. It's one of those things that you just can't wrap your head around, and you can't quite get out of your mind. I want to ask you, what do you think, and I ask everyone, what do they think Sasquatch is? And there's obviously no wrong answer, but what are your thoughts, Joe?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, what I thought at the time was the devil. A loose devil. What else can I tell you? That's all I need.
Yeah, at that time, that's what I would have thought too. What are your thoughts now? What do you think it is now?
Well, if the way I saw it and what I'm thinking, maybe I got intrigued by Bigfoot. That's now that I'm older and I've seen and I've watched and I've learned. That's, I think, and I saw the human figure. I had an encounter with it. But I can't tell you I saw the face, hair, nothing. Just saw the figure and the eyes looking right at me. And I saw the body.
Yeah, I think based on your description, its behavior, I think that you ran into one of these creatures too, no doubt. One question I want to ask you about the smell. How would you describe that smell?
To me, the best I can describe with is an old man that has been in a nursing home, because mom used to work in a nursing home. An old man that pooped in his pants and a wet goat that urinated himself and mixed together. Just a horrible smell, and it made me gag. I can't say it was death because I smelled dead deer, dead animals. I smelled fresh blood of a deer killed, cows. No, it's just something that I don't know. It's a unique smell. I can't place it.
Yeah, that's how a lot of eyewitnesses describe it. Just think of like the worst smell possible. It's almost burning your eyes. It stinks so bad. I would say the majority of eyewitnesses describe it that way. Not always. There is a small portion that, they'll say, well, it just stunk. It just, but I wasn't gagging from it. But a lot of eyewitnesses say that they do gag from that smell. And to be honest with you, Joe, there's a lot of coon hunters that run into these things, especially at night. There's a lot of hunters that run into these things. I would have probably reacted the exact same way you did. Your 22 isn't going to help you out at that point. You're just kind of at its mercy. And not remembering how you got back to your truck, I think that's just shock setting in. But I can't say that I would have reacted any different.
Well, my reason behind calling you Wes is just maybe you'll give me an explanation, or maybe you could help me give me some kind of closure. Because to this day, it bothers me. It still eats at me.
Yeah, I think based on what happened to you, Joe, I think you absolutely ran into one of these creatures, and I don't think it was alone. And that's just my opinion. From you hearing the screaming and the different vocalizations, and then you see the creature in a different spot, and they generally don't run around by themselves. You'll see one, and there's usually one or two nearby. They seem to travel in groups, and especially at night. And again, a lot of this is just my opinion based on eyewitness testimony, but I think they do a lot of their hunting at night. And, I would have done the exact same thing you did, Joe. I think in most situations with these creatures, they generally don't attack unless you provoke an attack. They're going to intimidate you. They're going to scare you. They're going to do everything they can to make you leave. And that's probably why the one came out and they saw him. It was intimidation, trying to get you to leave. But I don't think that they'll attack you unless you provoke an attack. If you had a shot or something like that, we may not be speaking today. But I know it's an encounter that's bothered you all of these years, and I know you were nervous about coming on, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and share with us what happened to you.
No worries. Thank you. I'm glad I was able to talk to you, and at least you can give me some kind of closure and give me an idea. Maybe that's what I ran into.
Next up on the show, I want to welcome Ben. Ben, thanks for coming on.
It's my pleasure, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and if you would, Ben, take us back to 2020, almost 3 years ago now. You were in Richmond, New Hampshire. It's right on the Massachusetts border. What were you doing, and walk us into what happened?
It was April of 2020, and I was geocaching. Some people may know what that is, some may not. Basically, it's an excuse to get out and fresh air. It gives you something to do while you're there. Kind of more importantly, pertaining to my story, part of it is keeping an eye open for other people, because what you're supposed to do is find a package at certain GPS locations, and it's supposed to be secret. Whether it is or not, that's not important, but the point is you kind of keep an eye out for other people because you don't want non-players to know where the secret is, I guess. So my point is, I was keeping my eyes open while I was there. Nonetheless, when I got to the parking lot, there was nobody there. It was just myself. It was at a town forest. It's called the Widow Gage Town Forest. It has a circle loop trail, and the NET, the New England Trail, runs through the property as well. The New England Trail, you can also call it the Metacomet Monadnock Trail. That's more in the northern portions, but as far as I understand, they're interchangeable. The New England Trail runs from the Connecticut border up to southern New Hampshire, to Mount Monadnock in southern New Hampshire. So that runs through the property. I head in. I'm going, it's a nice place, whatever. It's very early spring. There isn't any greenery on the trees. I don't even think the ferns were coming up yet. And it was a nice place. It was mature beech, trees, old sugar maples, nice old sugar maples. I was enjoying my time. Probably about a quarter of the way into my loop, I came up upon a beaver pond, kind of in the northern portion. And when I came up I didn't know it was there. I was coming up a rise on the property. As I came up, I said, oh, there's a beaver pond up there. As soon as I said it, some ducks took off. Spooked them like they do. Gave me a quick fright. That was it. I poked around a little bit more, check it out, see if there's anything else in the pond. Nothing. And I moved on. At this point in the trail where that beaver pond is, the NET trail enters the property. So for a very brief portion, the Widow Gage Trail and the NET Trail share the same walking path. I moved on off of the shared path back onto the Widow Gage Trail. I was looking for one of those geocaches. And I was keeping my eyes open, but before or after I got there, I started hearing voices. I just figured it was people coming up behind me. The voices were behind me. I figured they were coming up behind me. Honestly, the first thing I thought was it was those ducks again. I thought they had come back. It's early for nesting time, but I would say it's nesting time for them. And when they come back or they're in any numbers, they kind of murmur to one another. I thought it might have been the ducks I was hearing because I couldn't make out what they were saying. I just heard voices. Regardless, I didn't see anybody. I moved on. The next portion of the trail goes up the highest portion, the highest part of the property, which is it's a hill. I don't know if anybody out of Massachusetts would call it high. It's only about 900 feet up. It's not too strenuous to say the least. But I got up there and I was catching my breath, looking around, investigating some, going off trail, not far by any means. While I was there, I heard an owl. I heard a barred owl, which, in my experience anyway, I don't typically hear. It surprised me. But the thing that surprised me was as soon as I heard it, I said, this is somebody imitating a barred owl. My brain knew it was somebody imitating a barred owl. I knew it wasn't an owl. An owl has a very breathy voice, if I can put it that way. If you hear mourning doves, their call is very, very from the lungs. You can hear it. This was crisp. This was a person. This was like a human. It was crisp. It was sharp, just like we would do it. Anybody who isn't a professional, I guess. I turned around because it came from behind me, fully expecting the owners of the voices I had heard earlier, the people, to be behind me, to be coming up the trail. There was nobody there. I didn't see an owl. I looked. They're not easy to spot, but I didn't see it. And I didn't see the people. Shortly, I heard the voices again, coming from behind me, from where I had already been. And I said, all right, they got to be coming. They got to, they have to be coming soon because I can hear them. I don't hear very well. I hear well enough. But if I'm hearing voices in the woods, I fully expect to be able to see somebody, and soon. And there was nobody. And like I said, I farted around a little bit up there. So I was kind of wasting time, but kind of in anticipation of seeing these people coming. And nobody did. I didn't know anything about the subject at this point. Nothing like I do now. I didn't know this was, I guess you could say, repeatable behavior from these animals. The Sasquatch, I mean. That hadn't even crossed my mind. So anyway, I didn't see anybody. I said, all right, well, I'm not going to hang around. I'm not intended on making friends. I'm going to keep going. So I did. I came down the hill, found another geocache. I don't believe I heard the voices coming behind me. And then again, I wasn't waiting for them. And I didn't hear the owl again either. So I just assumed, all right, if it's anything, it's people on the NET trail. They diverted, for whatever reason, to the top of this hill, thinking, hey, maybe there's a view, maybe there's a picnic spot. I don't know. Turned around and continued on their way. That's all I could figure. And I really didn't waste too much time thinking about it. It was confusing, but like I said, I didn't hear the voices when I got down the hill. So I didn't give it much more thought. I continued on the trail, and it came out to a nice clearing where an old cellar hole was. I assume where the Widow Gage used to live. It was a nice little property. It overlooked another beaver dam, pond, a separate beaver pond than from the first one I came across. That one was uphill. It was a nice property. I spent some time walking around. There was old glass, old metal. I took my time. There were old sugar maples again, beautiful carcasses of old sugar maples. The thing about this position, this property, there was good sight lines all around. Like I said, it was a nice property. It was on a little rise. There was an older cart road that ran through it. It ran north, which you could follow, and there was a second cart road which ran perpendicular to the first. So this cellar hole was at the corner of the two roads. The one that ran perpendicular disappeared into the woods, but, like they do. Importantly, before it disappeared, it passed a low-lying area where a stream came down the hill into the beaver dam. I keep saying beaver dam, into the pond. This being springtime, and we had a good spring. It was a wet spring, and we had some snow. It was flooded there. Like I said, you could follow that cart road. I could have. It eventually disappeared, but I was confident I could find the trail again. But it was wet. And it was, April. I'm not going to bother with that if I don't have to. So I stuck to the main trail, and there were a couple boardwalks over the stream area, kept my feet dry, and the trail continued paralleling the shore of the pond. And it began up a slight rise. And you could see well. And that's where I was. I was on the slight rise on the edge of the pond, and I heard the owl again. And this time, there was no doubt in my mind that it was a person, because I'm going to sound like a fool now, but there's no way to barn owls, when they call, they hoo, 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 hoo. And then this thing went, Yahoo! Like Tarzan, like Captain Caveman. It was, in my mind, undoubtedly a person. Undoubtedly. Fooling around, imitating an owl. I think to myself, aha, I knew there were people. I knew it was someone on top of the hill imitating an owl. And I turned to see back where I had come from, because that's where the noise took me. And when I turned to look, I looked down. The noise took me down, not up in the trees. Owls typically sit up low in the trees, not up high. It didn't take me to that level in the trees. The noise took me to the ground. And I turned and looked. And I saw this thing. And I said, initially I said, wow, that dude's tall. Like I said, it's funny how your brain works, And it's hard to explain, but it was like I was stupefied. I was flummoxed. I was bamboozled. I was looking at it like I couldn't. I could see it perfectly clear. And by saying those things, I don't mean that I got zapped by it. By no means did that happen. It's just my brain was too ignorant of the fact of these things' existence that I guess I couldn't comprehend what I was looking at. Even though I could see, I went back. I went back to this property this year because I was entertaining the idea of getting in touch with you, and I wanted to have my facts straight. And I eyeballed it, and I would wager to say I was about 40 yards away from it. That's my best guess. 40 to 50 yards, no more than 50. And I had clear sight line. I had a clear view of it. There were trees, but not enough to hide this thing. Back to looking at it, what it was in the process of doing was, it's kind of hard to explain. It was turning to its left. I could see its right arm and it's the right side of its body. It was turning and going down to the ground, all in one motion, all in one, just turning and down to the ground. And I don't mean crouching. It wasn't squatting. It was like going down and reaching out with that right arm to kind of go down flat. And which is odd because, like I already explained, that area where it was the flooded area. It was just confusing because why would a person belly flop down onto the flooded ground? It was confusing. And like I said, I knew it wasn't a person. Yet my brain was working to try and make it be a person in my head. I was trying to rationalize it. I said, oh, he's all in black. It's odd choice, but it wasn't hunting season. I thought it may have had a hood on, wearing a hoodie. And then I thought, well, maybe the dude had an afro. I figured, I settled on that. I figured, all right, it's either an afro or a hoodie. I should be able to tell. I should have been able to tell for sure at that distance, but I couldn't. It was like its head was that shape, as if a person were wearing a hood, and you saw them from behind. Because that's what I saw. I saw the briefest of what I assume was the side of its face, but then it was all back of the head. It was all, so that would be the shape that I saw, that cone head, if you want to say that. It was huge. Like I said, the first thing that went through my head was, that dude is tall, and it was tall. This is all after the fact now, thinking about this. But thinking about it years ago, my ex-wife and I, we had tickets to the Celtics, and we were right on the floor. And at halftime, they walked right by us. And those guys were tall, those guys, every last one of them was tall. And that's who this thing reminded me of, a tall basketball player. It wasn't bulky. It wasn't, 4 feet at the shoulders. It wasn't 5 feet at the shoulders. It was lean. And by that, I don't mean sickly. I mean, maybe like a LeBron. That's the way I picture LeBron James. He's not overpowering in his size. I'm sure he is if you were to meet him in person, but he's not like a Rob Gronkowski, like a pro tight end, And that's another reason why I think my head was trying to convince me it was a person. But something it did in its movement stuck in my brain. And that's when it was reaching its right arm and going down to the ground. And for some reason, that particular movement stuck in my head. And I couldn't place it. And I didn't know why. And it was a while after, because I think I knew what I saw. I didn't admit it to myself, and I sure didn't tell anybody anything. But I was looking, this may have been the time Expedition Bigfoot had come on. I don't know. But I was looking for new entertainment for myself. And one way or another, I found your show. And that was a relief. That was a relief. That was very helpful. And through your show, I learned of all the other shows out there about the subject. Let me say though, I was aware of Bigfoot prior to this. I had seen the famous In Search Of. I just always thought it was localized to the West Coast, to Canada, to Alaska, not in New England, and definitely not where I was that particular day.
Yeah, it seems like I get reports from pretty much everywhere. And I do get a lot of reports off the air from the New England area. Can I ask you, Ben, when it dropped down to all fours, did you see it go down on all fours?
It went down. I never saw it again. That arm movement, that freakishly long arm, what it did, like I said, it was almost as if it belly flopped, but it went down. And at that point, like many roads in New England, there's a stone wall. It's old and it's falling down, but it's there nonetheless. It's a single stack stone wall. And at the time, I don't think I realized that's what it went behind. It just dropped out of sight. I figured it was behind something. At the time, I don't think I knew what. When I went back this year, this spring, and stood in the spot where it was, there is a stone wall there. So I think it dropped down behind that stone wall. Now, when I had seen it, when I had turned around to see it, I was still moving forward. I hadn't come to a complete stop. My momentum was still carrying me forward on the trail. So I was slowing down, but I turned to look where this owl person imitating an owl was. So when I saw him drop down and it disappeared, I turned and caught my step, and turned back around to see, well, what's this fool doing? I saw him. Where's he going? I turned back around and never saw him again. I didn't see a second person. And by that, I mean whoever this thing may have been talking to, the voices I had heard, because it wasn't somebody talking to themselves. It was two people. It was two people talking, undoubtedly. I didn't see another figure. I didn't see the original figure. And like I said, at the time, I wasn't like, holy cow, that's a Bigfoot. Can't believe I just saw a Bigfoot. Because Bigfoot aren't from around here. They're not here. It's a person messing around with me, and I didn't have time for it. And I continued on my way. Like I said earlier, I was confused. I couldn't, I wanted to forget it, but I couldn't forget it. I wanted to stop thinking about it. I'd go back and forth. That was just some guy messing with me. But I'd come back to it. I said, no, man, that wasn't talking to myself, saying, no, that wasn't a guy. That wasn't a man. You know it wasn't a man. No, it was a man.
Yeah, and I think that's normal, Ben. I think every eyewitness kind of goes through that. It's you try to make sense of what you saw. It must have been a bear. It must have been a person. And in your heart, that's not what you saw. I can't tell you how many hunters I've talked to off the air, and they're like, I've never seen Bigfoot, but let me tell you about this weird bear that I saw. And as they're describing it, nothing in their description adds up to a bear, or they'll go, well, I saw this weird homeless guy, and, nothing in their description adds up to a homeless human out there. The arms are too long. The behavior's off. There's just nothing quite adds up. So I think it's normal to try to put it in a box that we understand. It must have been this. It must have been that. And I think everyone kind of goes through that. One of the things you brought up was at Yahoo, and I've told this story many times on the show, but I heard that at the Browns property here in Washington. Jonathan and I were out on his property, and it reminded me of like a deaf person saying Yahoo. There was something very off about it. And he's got a huge piece of property. He's on a Native American reservation. There was no one around. And just that Yahoo, there was something very off about it. It wasn't quite human. It wasn't quite animal. Now you're about 40 yards away from this thing, 40, 50 yards, something like that. How big do you think it was?
I would put it at around 6'6". 6'6". It's hard to say because it wasn't standing up straight. It was already going down. Maybe 7 feet. That's probably an exaggeration. I'd be comfortable putting it at 6'6". It was clear he was taller than the average person. It was as if I couldn't focus on it. I couldn't, though my eyes were working fine, I think it was my brain. My brain was just couldn't keep up with what I was seeing. So as for details, it had a long arm. It had to have had 2 long arms because I kind of saw the bottom, like the left hand kind of coming, below its, I guess where its rear end would be, kind of sticking out as it was going down, because it only kind of threw that one that I could see anyway, that one right arm out in front of it. It's not as if it did a full-on Superman down. It was that kind of that right arm going down, and it was all black. It was all black. It was like a shadow in black. It was all black. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, well, I only ask people to tell me what they saw, nothing more, nothing less. And in these moments of shock, there's also kind of that tunnel vision. So I can kind of see, especially when you saw the long arm and realized, hey, that's not a guy, they're not human anyway. I know that after we're going on 2 years, almost 3 years now, you've had time to kind of research this, investigate this topic. And I ask everyone on the show, Ben, and there's no wrong answer, but I'm curious, what do you think Sasquatch is?
Obviously I knew you were going to ask me. You ask everybody. And you're right, I have thought about it. I've thought about it. I try and come up with my own guess. It's the best way to put it. But I think these things have been here as long as we have, I think. I think they're flesh and blood. I think they can be killed. I don't think they're aliens, anything like that. I just think they're a relative of ours, a relative of an ape. I don't even like saying the word. The Gigantopithecus theory isn't too kosher with me. It's simply because we're lacking so much information on what exactly that creature was. We have very little evidence on that creature itself. I think they're their own thing. And I think the benefits of being around as long as they have been is they have so many different abilities, some that maybe we have forgotten how to use. I'm not into the whole woo, but I think there's something to it. And I think you'd be a fool not to think that way, because there's just too many reports indicating that there's something unnatural with these things. I think they're masters of their environment. They can communicate. Does that mean they have culture? The definition of culture? I don't know. It appears they have family units. Why wouldn't there be? If they're a relative of ours, I don't see any reason why there couldn't be. They would win a gold medal in whatever event they chose to enter in the Olympics. They're freakish athletes.
Yeah, I respect your answer, Ben. Do you think they are more human-like, or would you consider them more animal-like?
I think it's its own thing, Wes. I think it has different aspects of each. I think because, and now I'm only going on whatever reported behavior I've happened to learn, but it shows characteristics of each. It shows quick to anger, quick to be defensive, like an animal. But they show plenty of human qualities as well. They seem to know what a firearm is. They seem to be helpful. They seem to be curious. Like we said, they seem to have a language. I believe they have a language just based upon the investigations by, I don't know his name, but he's a linguist. I'm sure you're aware of who I'm talking about. But it's clear they have a language. At least that family unit that was recorded had a language. Are they all the same? Meaning the ones in Arizona are similar to the ones in Massachusetts? I don't think so. I think there are different dogs, right? A hot dog is different from my pit bull, but they're both dogs, right? But a hot dog doesn't look much like a pit bull. They have 4 legs and 2 ears, same typical body shape, but so doesn't a raccoon, but you can tell they're dogs, right? I think that's similar with these things. They may not look exactly the same, whereas mine was lean. Maybe the ones up in Alaska are just absolute behemoths. They're giants. But looking at them, oh, that's a Bigfoot. That's a Sasquatch.
Yeah, I like your answer, Ben. I've kind of come to that conclusion too. I would say most of their behavior is very animalistic, but there is moments in encounters when people are talking about what happened to them, you'll kind of get a glimpse into these creatures that not always do they act animalistic. They seem to assess situations they're in. For example, where you come across another predator like a bear or a cougar and you spook it or you startle it or there's something wrong with it, it's on or off. They're going to either kill you or they're going to leave. There really is no in between. With these things, they seem to really, I don't know, I would say empathy, but more of, they just seem to really assess the situation that they're in and kind of react where I guess they feel is appropriate, is the only way I can say it. But it is fascinating. And, the other thing too, Ben, I wanted to tell you, I talked to a lot of people in the New England area. We talked about this before we came on the air, and I get a ton of reports from there. But people from New England are very, very tough to get on the air. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come on.
Well, of course, Wes. I thank you. I thank you for what you've done and what you're doing. It's been a big help, and like I said earlier to you, hopefully, maybe by speaking with you, maybe I won't be thinking about it as much as I have. I think it's a bit of a relief. Everybody says that, but they say it because it's true. It's a bit of relief. It's a bit of relief to be able to speak with you and get it off my chest.
Thanks again, Ben. And that's it for tonight, everyone. Remember, if you've had an encounter, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. And if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Happy holidays, everyone.